Hello, everybody. It is 1:14 p.m. Central Time on Monday, the 8th of March, 2021. Hope you are doing well. We are here to talk about seismic events. If you're not familiar with where you're at, you're on the Earthquake 3D live stream. And let me get a display capture turned on here so you can see a little bit better what we're looking at. For new viewers, quickly let me explain. The earthquakes that are raised high off the globe are deep down into the earth. And we pay attention to the deep earthquakes because following the deep earthquakes, usually next to the deep earthquakes and spreading out away from the deep earthquakes, we see shallower, larger earthquakes. And what I think's happening is a concentric wave of sorts happening down below the plates in the magma, coming up and hammering into the underside of the plate. And when that hammering action takes place, if we get multiple points that are hammering, it then spreads out and away from the hammer point and develops into what's called a standing wave. And the standing waves tend to be the same size, and as you pump more energy in from one end or the other, they do that by compressing these towards and away from each other, the ends. But as you pump more energy into it, instead of getting chaotic, the waves become organized in the tank, and they all become about the same size. Then, as the waves move through the tank, they fill in each other's middle points. So, for instance, this peak will come down and fill into the middle point of the trough of the open spot here, or the bottom of the valley will be filled in by the peak of it, and I can just park my mouse over that, and you'll see how the middle points are filled in as the wave spreads through the tank. But the tank we're talking about here is a Mother Nature's created tank, which is the plate boundaries, which are the plate boundaries around the planet. Where these red lines are, the separations between the plates, that's where the waves start to spread. So we get deep earthquakes hammering in, and then shallower, larger earthquakes spreading out and filling in the middle points between our current sets of quakes. Over the past few days, we had an 8.1 earthquake. You see that with the huge rings on the screen here now. Multiple 7s striking right before the 8. So it was a 7.3, a 7.4, and then an 8.1. And they were hundreds of miles apart. 7.3 off the coast of northeast New Zealand. 7.4 to the west of the 8.1. Then the 8.1 struck. This all happened in one day's time, by the way, and that's the 7s and the 8. Then look at all the 6s filling in all those spots in between, and then going out at least another 1,000 miles over to the west with a 6.1. We take it down to 5s, and then you're going to see the spread carried on, but it just took a magnitude step down from there. And it was equally spaced across the whole West Pacific, and then going over to the western portion central of Africa. And this 5.2 is at -1 latitude, just below the equator by -1. And this earthquake, this 5.6, also at a -1. This one struck first, this one struck second, this one struck third, and now we've got a new 5.5 striking here on the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia today. So that's where we're going to start this update. Really is the new activity that spread over the past day and a half has now reached over to the west with new deep earthquakes, rare deep earthquakes down below Sumatra, Indonesia, and then a shallower, larger earthquake, like I just said, 5.5, right next to it. You can also see the other deep earthquakes filling in the middle points between and going up to Japan, where the other 5.0 range activity struck on the Izu Ridge yesterday. Now, if you're keeping track of areas where I issued warnings, you have to go back to my update 3 days ago. And this was an open area right here. We didn't have any earthquake activity. This is the middle point filled in. Same with over to the west. We have activity, new deep earthquakes, and the 5 filling in the middle open points. The only spot now left to get hit is Bali, Indonesia. And there was a new blast that happened over at Semeru, right on the edge of Java, or right here, basically. And that blast is significant. Now, speaking of significant blasts, how about all the way up at the North Pacific? Veniaminoff volcano has erupted on the peninsula of Alaska. And I'd like to quickly jump over and just take a look at the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center and see if anything else is on there. But Sanjay, we have to talk about as well, put off a 35,000 foot high blast in Ecuador 2 days ago that the media completely ignored. How about that? But Sakurajima, Suwanizajima, those are both in South Japan, going off a few times with 10,000 foot high blasts. Reventador in Ecuador, that's pretty small, I think. Here, let's check. Whoops. Of course, I need to do the ad blocker, but actually I don't need to do the ad blocker because I want them to get paid for my views. But let's just go over and see. 14,000 foot high blast at Reventador. I guess that's nothing to scoff at. Sabancaya in Peru. Reventador a few more times. Popocatépetl, Fuego in Guatemala. Here is Veniaminov with its 11,000 foot high blast up in Alaska. That is the new development. And again, I've got to point that out because it is right here on the peninsula coming out of Alaska. And we've got this warning going for the central Aleutians for the potential of large earthquake activity. And it's creeping right up to the edge of the Aleutians. Let's go back to the USGS plate boundary map and go up here to the north and just quickly take a look. There's the red line of the plate boundary. You can see the earthquakes are coming out of Japan and going up to Kamchatka and stopping right about here where the pinnacle tip makes a bend to the east and goes over into Alaska. And that's the open silent zone. And now on the edge of the open silent zone, Veniaminov suddenly blows. And again, it's pretty rare for us to get any volcanic activity up in Alaska at all. Old man Dutch here, hold on. Dude, I always try to make my updates as professional as possible, and then shit like this happens. It's that time of year again, I guess. Ah, it is. It's March. Drinking the coffee. Okay, let's try that again. It's just live. I can't edit it out. Normal video makers have this stuff happen too, guys. If you're watching like over on YouTube, oh yeah, they have all kinds of technical issues. They edit that out. They just go into their little video maker, hit clip it out, make it sound perfect, match up the audio. Never happened. Yeah. Why doesn't that happen when you're on live news? You know why? Because you're always running 30 seconds behind live. You aren't watching live on TV. They edit that shit out on TV too. Humans have problems breathing when they talk for a long time. Okay, let's carry on. So recapping, guys, deep earthquakes have gone across the West Pacific. We're watching for shallower, larger earthquakes next to our deep earthquake activity, and that's already taking place. The forecast for this week is to watch for new 7.0 activity to be where the rings overlap here on the Kermadec Islands. It's so hard to see because there's so many earthquakes there, but where the rings overlap at that middle point. Now, I do want to point something out to everybody that last night, going into this morning, the middle point was filled in by a new 5, 5.4, and a 4.9. Take them and add them together, it equals 5.5. But now all that does is split the area to right here at the head of the arrow. So while the middle point was struck by a 5, we're looking for a 7-something to strike in here. That's 2 magnitudes under. That's 100-fold less power than expected right now. But I still have the warning going here, and I'm not going to cancel it till the end of the week. Today is day 2 going into day 3 of a 7-day watch for this. Also, down to the south, the warning for an upper 5 to low 6. I'll keep it at an upper 5 most likely from Kaikoura. That's north of Christchurch, south of Wellington, but I have the warning going all the way from Wellington all the way down to Christchurch. We have to watch the middle point. I'm not canceling the warning on that either. Should still take place. Over to the west, well, the middle points have been filled in, again, by mid-range 5s, and all that does is cut the area in half, which means we have to watch here, where the rings are overlapping now. Previously we were watching here, it just got hit, now we're watching here. So we still wait till the end of the week for the big one to hit. And I think this too could go up into that upper 6th level, just like I said in my forecast. There is the slight potential, slight now, that we could see a large or larger earthquake than the 8.1. something equal or bigger than the 8. Very slim. So we have a very slim chance, and I would say it's probably not going to happen, but I have to point this out. Look at all the earthquakes in the past 48 hours. This is like less than 48 hours. Look what's happened since this whole thing started. So before, we were dealing with a number 7 shape of all these earthquakes. Now, it started to reach out and go over around and curl back down to the south. There's just a little spot in here that would need to be filled in by some earthquake activity to make this a giant ring around the entire area. And let me turn off the rings just so we can see them. To make this a giant ring of earthquakes 1,000 miles around in the whole area here. I mean, look at it. So there is the potential of a large earthquake still to mix in. That I would think it would be right around when it connects back in. That if there was to be a large earthquake, it would probably fill in this area here in between. But, I mean, it's such a, again, it's a few hundred miles across each way, but 1,000 miles all the way around. Down to the south, we have the same thing going on, but it's just a smaller, it's like a microcosm, smaller version of what's going on up to the north. But look at it. Again, it's a huge cluster, and it's reached out and around up to the north. The only thing missing would be for it to come back around the backside. But again, this is a big ring of earthquakes there. It's not a line of them. Sometimes we see lines of earthquakes, but this is huge, well, ring of earthquakes. And same with up here to the north. And it really is. This one is really starting to make that ring-like shape, and we don't have any past examples to go on this. I would expect the earthquakes to go all the way up the ridge and carry on up to the north. Following the plate boundary. Here, let me show you the plate boundary map, and you'll understand why I would think it would just go that way. So this is the oddball, right? It's making this ring shape right here in the middle of the Kermadex, but we would expect it to go and follow the plate boundary. Kind of like the San Andreas, how we expect the earthquakes to go along that diagonal line of the San Andreas. Which is why I'm looking at the middle point between the two. I think they would connect in. Well, something started last night. Again, we got that 5.4 right in the middle, in between the 7s. So the potential is there. Keep watch. How long? I would say just for a few days. In Japan, March 2011, we started with a 7.2 earthquake on March 9th. Oh, by the way, 10 years ago tomorrow. 10 years ago tomorrow, on the 10-year anniversary where this whole Japan mess started with a 7.2 earthquake right off the coast of Tokyo that created a small 3-foot tsunami back in March of 2011. Then, for 2 days, a line of 4s and 5s, several hundred miles long, broke out from Tokyo off the coast, going all the way up here to off the coast of Honshu. Then, 2.5 days later, almost 3 days later, on the 11th, it broke with the 9. Now wait just a second, because now we can go all the way back down here and make that analogy down here. Which is, 3 days ago, this broke apart. A line of 4s, 5s, and 6s has broken out in about the same distance, 500 miles across, 300 to 500 miles across, and 1,000 miles all the way around. That's why people, and I don't blame them, are looking for a larger earthquake out of this. Again, when I say people, I'm talking about people in the chat room, people who I converse with, other people who do seismic research online, who do a little bit of their own forecasting. But I think the spread should take place. Well, I mean, the spread is taking place, but is it enough to allow for that to dissipate around the planet? And let me move this microphone again. Man, this is turning into a hell of an update. You hear the mic start moving. Okay, so going over to the west, we're going to watch again. We've already said that we were watching over in Sumatra, Indonesia, going into Java and Bali. Check Sumatra off the list. Check Bali off the list. And the middle point is right between the two. Why do we check Bali off the list? It was hit by a bunch of 3s. You see them. They're here now. They just got hit. And really all that does is shift the area by about 100 miles. Same with up in Philippines. We warned central North Philippines, and it's been filled in perfectly by a new 4.0 earthquake, 3.9. But all that does is cut the area in half and shift the warning now to here. Again, it's like 150 miles, 200 miles to the south. Okay, hold on. We have to move this microphone. It's just one of those days. It's just one of those days. It's not going to go perfectly smooth, but, you know, if it did, I would think something's wrong. I'd be like, things are going too smooth. Now, speaking of going too smooth, how about just too quiet? China, Nepal, Myanmar, right here at the center of the screen. While the rest of the planet is going into overdrive with 6s and spreads of 5s, and of course the 7s and 8s back down here next to Kermadex, China, quiet. We don't have any seismic activity coming out of the area at all. Now, I wonder about China and Russia sometimes and the reporting of earthquakes out of here, but we do get reports from our agencies, so that's if our agencies detect something. But notice the cluster over in the Mideast and the cluster coming out of Sumatra, Indonesia. And look which way the arrows point. You see how it goes up and around Myanmar, through Nepal, and goes back over, and right at the tip of the arrows where all those earthquakes are, right? So deliberately right in there, right? I'm not controlling them, I promise. But here, let's go back over to the plate boundary map, and you'll see why the earthquakes are going that way. The plate boundary goes that way. And so it goes up through Myanmar, makes a bend, and goes over to Nepal, and we have activity over here at Afghanistan-Pakistan border region. We have activity over here at Sumatra. So what would you say the halfway point is between the activity in Sumatra and the activity in Afghanistan-Pakistan border region if we go around the bend of the plate? Well, it's easier to see on the planet here. Obviously, the middle point's right here, going around the bend. If this was a 2-arm scale, the balance point would be right there, wouldn't it? So, that's where we're going to watch, and that's where the warning's already been issued. It's been quiet, and that's the new halfway point. We got a bunch of 5s here and a bunch of 4s here, a bunch of deep earthquakes here and deep earthquakes here. Yeah, there's some stress in Asia. Should break. Should be in the upper 5 to low 6 level. Iran is sitting high and dry too. Look at it this way. We have earthquakes right over here at the border of Iran and Turkey, one on one side of the border over in Iran, east side. Turkey's on the west side. And then you go down and around Iran and you get back up here to the earthquakes at Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Let's go back to that plate boundary map again. Well, look, there's Iran. We've got earthquakes over here at the Afghanistan border. We have earthquakes over here at the Turkey-Iran border. If we go down and around, again, that halfway point brings us right in here. South central Iran. Right there. Now, notice I've got arrows on the north side, but I'm going to expect the south side to shift. Why? Go down here. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, new 5 popped off on the Indo-Australian plate boundary to the west. Let me show it to you on the plate boundary map here. Right out here on this jagged line. See where it goes? Goes up and meets into Yemen, or the Gulf of Aden. It also makes a number 7 shape bend and goes up into Iran, the Carlsberg Ridge. So that's why we're going to watch South Iran, that number 7 shape bend of the Carlsberg Ridge that goes down and connects to where the earthquake was down here. We also should warn the Red Sea. I don't know if there's anybody there that even watches in Egypt or Saudi Arabia, but I would warn right here at the tip of the arrow, and it should be in the upper 4 to low 5 range, just like over in Iran should be in the upper 5 to 6 range. So I think more energy into Iran, less but still significant, coming up through the Red Sea. I didn't even put that in my forecast yesterday. It doesn't really matter. It should be out in the water. It should be in the 5 level. But where it does matter is where they pull back up in Europe. And I've got a warning going up here in Central Europe, up in Croatia, for new seismic activity to increase. So where are... Oh, hey, hold on. Hold on. I didn't even notice this morning. When did this hit? 12:44 UTC. Yeah, 6 hours ago. Look at that. A near 4 is struck back over here at Croatia, directly at it. Now look at the spacing on this. Again, remember the wave tank that I showed you at the start of this update. So we get our hammering action from the deep earthquakes, but the spread of the earthquakes, the same sized quakes. Again, imagine these all as 4.0 or 3.0 range earthquakes, and they're spreading out across all of Turkey going up into Central Europe. And that this is the wave tank. And the wave tank is shown in the red lines here on the USGS plate boundary map. So it's not a straight tank like in the laboratory, but still the earthquakes go down around and come up on the inside of it. And that's where the earthquakes are up here to the north. Right next to Croatia, new 4.0 just breaking out today. 3.6 downgrade. But what's coming in is the same size. What's going out is the same size. This is 2 magnitudes under expected. Exactly 2 magnitudes under expected. Our warning is for up to 5.7. We're at basically 4 right now. So we're a magnitude and a half, 2 magnitudes under. But that's holding true across the whole planet right now. Again, if we're looking for 7s and we're seeing 5s, we're looking for 7s to spread out from here, and so far it's been 5s. That's 2 magnitudes under. We're looking for upper 6s to strike over here, and we're getting low-end 5s. Again, or low to mid-range 5s. We are again 1.5 magnitudes to 2 magnitudes under so far. And same with all the way over here. It's across the board that way. It's still stuck over here in the West Pacific. You can see where it's stuck with all the deep earthquakes that are hammering off. So that deep earthquake activity is letting us know something's still getting ready to spread from the West Pacific. I warned China. I warned Iran. We're warning the Gulf of Aden. We're warning the Red Sea. We've warned South Europe, and we've warned Croatia. People still talking about Iceland, and I don't know what to tell them other than, look, we've seen a lot of seismic activity go out to Iceland in the past, just like this. And they mistake it for incoming volcanic activity. Now, they're saying there's deformation happening at this volcano, and I don't know, again, I can't verify that. It's from the professionals and Talk Online. I don't think it'll be a global disruption if it does erupt, so that's the good news. I think it would disrupt Europe, and that could definitely have an effect, but so that's what we're looking for there. Again, we're going to watch and see if there's an eruption. But when I see seismic transfer out there, look, the size that goes out to Iceland tends to be the same size that comes in from South Europe. And this past week, or 2 weeks ago, and this past week, 6.9. 6.9 down here. So 6.9 strikes down here, and then all of a sudden we get a swarm of 5s and quote-unquote volcanic deformation going on. But why? Back to the red line map once again from the USGS. Look where the break is taking place. Southwest tip of Iceland, right on this peninsula that comes out. Look what's there. It's the literal mid-Atlantic ridge that bisects or goes right across the center of and cuts in half Iceland. And going down to the south, all the other spots were already hit last week. So right here at the T intersection at the Azores, hit by 5 point something. Down here, right at the middle of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, hit by 5 point something. Down here, all the way down at the south tip of the South Sandwich Islands, hit by 5 point something. Also where they meet out here, hit by 5 point something, and a 5 point something struck south of South Africa. I mean, that's a lot of 5 point somethings to strike all the way along the plate boundary, and then to have the same thing happen in Iceland, and they say eruption? I'm just saying, I am not denying that there's going to be eruption, but there's been so many times in the past where the seismic comes rolling in and they mistake it. Okay. Azores has been struck, and that's a 3.3 striking on our letter X right at that T intersection I just showed you right in the middle of the screen here. And 3.3 striking out here, all we have to do is go back over to Spain to what happened yesterday over in Spain. Go back over here, and we had 3 point something breakout. South Spain, Gibraltar started to break out today. By the way, South Spain and Gibraltar were put on the warning list for this week. Jumping across South America, Central America. Well, new 5 point something just struck this morning, or just in the, actually, hold on, when did this hit? 5.2 just struck right in the middle of our warned area at 12:48 UTC. Again, we're talking about 7 hours ago, while I was snug as a bug in my bed. 5.2 earthquake struck right in the middle of our warned area. Right now, right north of our warned area, actually. 5.2. We'll see if it goes up or down, but right now it's at a 5. Now that's just like what we were talking about around the rest of the planet. So if we're looking for a 7 and a 5 hits, that's 2 magnitudes under across the board, including Chile. Again, but the distance is half a planet away. Now that this is hit, that divides the area in half of where we have to watch. Now we watch where the rings overlap right here between our current sets of 5s. Or all the 4s up to the north equal a 5, and then we have a 5 to the south. Watch where the rings overlap. That's north central Chile. It's not that far of a distance I have to shift, but there it is. Middle point's been filled in, guys. Right there. Perfect example of, again, how the fulcrum point gets hit. And I'm just trying to figure out the amplitude now, the power. So we're figuring out that areas are pretty easy to figure out now with the standing wave formula and just figuring out that the fulcrum points or the middle points of the wave get filled in by the next incoming wave. It's not that one wave's causing the other, guys. It's that each end on this tank is pumping, pushing towards each other and pulling out. And when they push towards each other, they pump energy into the fluid, right? And the more it pushes in, the bigger the waves get, the amplitude, the more power it gets behind it. So right now, I'm just off on amplitude. Location, spot on. Central America, same thing's going on right at the plate boundary where it meets in and goes across over into the Caribbean. I'll show it to you on the USGS map here in a second. Right here. So you see the Caribbean, and you see where the plate boundary comes across. Guatemala, we have Pacaya Volcano, Santa Guido, and Fuego, all three right across where this plate boundary comes in and meets in to the Pacific. But only 2 of them are erupting right now. There were 3 erupting last week. It made international news. But look at the spacing on these. One more time, how one ring bisects the other perfectly, or how one wave overlaps the other, and how the magnitudes are pretty much all the same. Mid-range 4, low to mid-range 4. So again, think of these like waves across the tank. But the tank has an exit over to the east, and there's volcanoes in the way, hence the eruptions at Pacaya and Fuego. And Fuego's really been putting them off. Hasn't Fuego really been going, guys? But wait a second. Look down to the south. The southern edge of that plate boundary goes right over to Ecuador, where Sanjay just put off a near 40,000-foot eye blast a day and a half ago, 2 days ago. That's right here. That was where our warning was going, was Ecuador. So a new blast, look, I mean, a new blast in Ecuador, just think of it like a new 5 or greater earthquake. And then the stepping stone path of earthquakes going down across Peru, meeting back up into the area that we warned down to the south. So all the warnings still stand. They're 7-day warnings, and we are like 2 to 3 days in on the 7-day watch. Over to the East Caribbean, we're also watching for upper 5 activity to near 6, and that still stands as well. The warning there still stands. Let's talk about Alaska, Hawaii, and lower 48 in the U.S. We can get Hawaii out of the way really quick for all my Hawaiian viewers, guys. Aloha! But look what's going on. First of all, you've got yourselves a little outbreak now down along the coast again. It's pretty big. It's starting to stack up off the screen. But you also see you've got a cluster of earthquakes up at Mauna Loa, up at this brown splotch up here. And I can show you where they're happening. They're all happening at the very top of Mauna Loa itself. Now the mainstream media and the professionals are all weighing in. Everybody's getting involved now. There's talk. And I don't blame them. Look, Veniaminoff just erupted up in Alaska. How many times do I have to tell you guys this? Hawaii and Alaska, volcanically speaking, we see them go sometimes in the same day. You'll see Mount Cleveland erupt on the same day that Kilauea drained, for instance. Or you'll see another eruption happen up in Alaska on the same week that there's something going on at Mauna Loa, like what we're seeing right now. Mauna Loa is starting to seriously show some activity on the back north side of this. This is the biggest shield volcano on the surface of the planet, not counting what's under sea, but look at it. It's moving at the top of Mauna Loa, but down at the foot of Mauna Loa down here is Kilauea. And I don't think we have any earthquakes there except for, what, two? 2 earthquakes at Kilauea where the big fill-up is happening in the crater. All the activities down along the coast, mainly. That big stack. And what's down along the coast? Well, Pahala. But let me show it to you this way. Is that the name of it? Hold on. That might not be the name of it. No, it is. Hey, I got it right. Hey, I'm going to sip my coffee. Yes! Finally got something right. Right, Truth? Okay. Yeah, they're like, stop clocks right twice a day, Dutch. Okay. Pahala is right there along the coast, and the earthquakes are happening right out in the ocean, going right up on the land. But even the untrained eye should be able to see we have a Smithsonian-marked volcano right out here in the ocean called Loihi. It's down below sea level, but eventually this thing will rise above sea level. It's the fastest rising one. It's out in the ocean, and it has a few more 1,000 feet to go before, maybe not even here high. Yeah, 3,000 more feet to go before it gets above sea level. But here, again, earthquakes happening along the coast, it's tied between Loihi and Mauna Loa. Right in there, that halfway point between the two. I think that's where the magma chambers are meeting. Over here on the east side, we have the Middle East Rift Zone that's reinflating from underneath. Let's get another good side view on this. reinflating from underneath. This thing collapsed, and it's now refilling with magma and lava at the surface, but the magma chamber down below is refilling with magma that's then pushing up underneath and spreading up to these other volcanoes. So in other words, this thing's inflating, and because it's inflating, this volcano and this volcano on either side, and even Mauna Kea up to the north, all show seismic activity, and they could even erupt. According to professionals, they're watching and waiting, but the magnitudes are increasing too, so the power behind this is actually going up. We got 3.0 range activity up at the top of Mauna Loa. Now, I think back in the 1980s, there was volcanic activity first at Kilauea. Maybe it was Pu'u'o'o or one of the other ones, but Kilauea first, then Mauna Loa erupted in the 1980s with its huge lava flows. And those lava flows can be big at Mauna Loa. Let's go over to Alaska and the United States. Again, Alaska, we are waiting. You already had a volcanic blast at Vaniaminoff Volcano, 11,000 foot. Somewhat rare. You might see it every few months with a blast up in Alaska. But the other magnitudes on this are small or low. The power on this is low going into Alaska, but you could call this a snare drum beat, and that the snare drum's really rolling right now. You could connect all these almost like a ramp going up into Mount Denali, the highest point in North America here, right at the bend of the plate. Let me show it to you on good old Google Earth. Up to the north we go, and you see all the volcanoes marked with the red triangles, but that just shows us where the plate boundary is out here in the ocean, goes down to the south. But look at what the mountains do. The mountains make a bend and go up to the north. And this is Mount Denali, the highest point in all of North America, a fold that's being pushed up. Again, this thing, if we look at it sideways, think of the Colorado Rockies, but way bigger. And this is being pushed up at the fold and the bend of the plate at the pinnacle fold by all the force that's coming in along the red lines up to the north. Take a look at it. So we have a push that comes in across the Aleutians, goes up into the plate, and then it runs into the Craton. The deformed edge and the accretionary belt, or the coastal plain, the green part. The green part goes over to the purple part, and the purple part goes over to the rusty brownish colored part. Now that rusty brownish colored part of the Craton is just the interior portion of it, the more stable portion. The deformed part is where all the mountains are, basically. And the green part is where all the folds on the edge of the plate are coming in from out in the ocean. So we're looking for a big earthquake to break here right in the middle of the Aleutian Islands, or very close to it, and then a spread to come into Alaska proper and go into land and go up to Anchorage just north of it between Denali and Anchorage. I would think the earthquake out in the ocean could be in the upper 6 level. I would think the earthquake coming into Anchorage would be in the 5-ish level, probably upper 5. Between Denali and Anchorage, we have to warn. And then down to the south, we have our warnings going. In continental United States, out in the ocean, I don't know if they'll report it, but we're looking for a new earthquake to break out here right off the coast of Eureka, California. And it too should be in the 5-ish to upper 5 range. If it comes in bigger, don't fault me, quote unquote. Now, in my last forecast for the United States, again, we warned for this new 5 to be breaking out up here, or bigger, to be breaking out on the coast of Eureka, and we warned for a 5 all the way down here to the south, down next to Salton Sea, or upper 4, I'm sorry. Upper 4. I mean, what's the difference between a 4.9 and a 5, right? And then the middle point, right here, we're going to watch for a questionable quake to break out between Ridgecrest and Kozo Junction. So, 2 warnings for sure in California, 3 if you want to include what we're just going to watch for, but at the middle. So far, the number of earthquakes has increased. The frequency has started to go up. Remember what I told you 3 days ago, where we saw one earthquake, we would see several, or we would see the power go up as well, so the magnitudes would start to increase from zeros. We were at zeros and ones. Now we're at a bunch of 2s and near 3.0 activity, and certainly the number of earthquakes has increased across the area. So there's more earthquakes here on the screen now than we were talking about a few days ago. And we're looking at about, this isn't even all the zeros here. Here's including the zeros. Now I'm going to turn on the last 24 hours worth of quakes. That's going to make it a little bit easier to understand what's moved just today. Now that you've seen these stacks over the past 2 days, you understand there's been a slight increase in the number of earthquakes. So again, I'm going to use the snare drum analogy one more time. that the snare drum has started to roll pretty fast. A few days ago, we were just hitting it with one stick. Now it's starting to roll the drum a little bit. Something's coming in. A new influx is coming in. We know what's coming in. Come on, we know what's going on. The rest of the planet is going into overdrive. We're seeing spreads of 5s go around the planet, and we're looking for 5s to come in on the northwest, right up here next to Eureka. Okay, 24 hours worth of activity, 0.0 and greater. All this does is remove a few of the earthquakes from yesterday, and you'll still see it. The stacks of earthquakes have started to increase in California, especially at the California-Nevada border, going down to Ridgecrest, and Southern California started to increase. The spread across Northern California spread across the San Andreas. That's nothing new. I'm going to start up here all the way to the north. We're going to look up these earthquakes going over to the east to Yellowstone, going down to the south to Utah, going across the entire state of California, and we'll also look up the quakes over here going over to the East Coast, which, by the way, North Carolina-South Carolina border started to move. We warned the North Carolina-Virginia border. So it started to move over there on the East Coast as well, but starting in the Northwest. Why do we start up here? Craton, guys. Craton! Look at it! Hey, if you're a new viewer, you're gonna be like, why does he talk about this thing all the time? Because professionals said there was no transfer that ever happened between any earthquakes anywhere ever, basically. And we started to notice the earthquakes were going down through Utah and Texas, and then going up the East Coast. And it matches the Craton. And I tried to show the professionals, and they said I was faking the earthquakes. That's how they explained it. They said he must be faking the quakes. There's no way there could be a transfer across the plate, because such and such formula says that the plate will absorb the energy and it won't go anywhere. And because the formula says it can't happen, it can't be happening, so he must be faking it. And I said, you got to be kidding me. What? Are you serious? I pulled a Paul Begley. And I tried to show them over many months and many years, and they started to get enraged and get mad at me for trying to tell them. Anyway, that was years ago, and I just gave up on trying to show the professionals because they were just so blockheaded because they said previously it couldn't happen. But here it is happening even right now, today, 24 hours. You see the earthquakes going down through Texas, back up to Oklahoma, over to the East Coast, and following the edge up to the north. It's a perfect match. Look at it. Look at Montana. Look at the edge of the Craton, the rusty brownish color, going through Montana in the northwest. Look where it goes through. It goes directly through the northwest tip of Wyoming. What's in the northwest tip of Wyoming? Right where the Craton goes over, where the edge meets with the deformed edge, there's Yellowstone. How about that's not a coincidence? Go out here to California, at the California-Nevada border. One more time, look at the Craton diagram. Look where the purple portion goes. Goes out to California, doesn't it? But it makes a bend right there, right at the California-Nevada border, and it meets with the green part, right? So, where the purple part meets with the green part, we have a supervolcano at the California-Nevada border called Mono Lake. Mono. And up at the Idaho-Wyoming border, where the purple portion meets, we have a supervolcano. So it turns out supervolcanoes form along the seams or the edges of the weak points of the Craton edges. Not just in the United States, apparently everywhere it happens that way. Add that to my checklist of things that we found. And look at the earthquakes, they match it perfectly. So where they meet, that's where the breaks take place. It's like a waveguide or a wave tank again. So now we're going to go look up to the northwest. Starting up here, a 0.2 out in the middle of nowhere. What do we got going on here? Go look up all these latest quakes. Waterville, Washington. Waterville. It's just a microquake. I don't even know if we should bother looking it up, but I want to know what's there. New people are going to want to know what's there too, so let's just go see. Previous earthquakes. High voltage power lines. Okay, hold on. We've got the high voltage power lines again. Do we have a power generation plant somewhere in here? You would think we would. Waterville. It's right down here. Yep. Major high power electric generation transmission. And right next to it, where the power lines go up and out and spread away from it just a couple miles, all of a sudden we get small earthquakes breaking out around these power lines. The power generation plants. Hydroelectric dams, nuclear plants, it happens too. Happens at nuclear plants, wind farms, solar farms, geothermal power plants, and of course, just regular old dams, again, hydroelectric, that apparently there's some kind of piezoelectric energy in the crust that is either being discharged by the power lines or the magnetic disturbance from the moving electric, the alternating current or direct current. So amazing that that's even going on. Let's go over here and look at the 0.7. They just removed that earthquake off the feed, guys. They literally just removed that earthquake off the 24-hour feed. Let me make sure. Hold on. They literally just removed it as I was talking about it. Let me hit refresh. Ha! Ha! Oh, it's exactly 24 hours old, Dutch. That's why we moved it off the feed. Okay. Whatever you say, boss. The plane. You're on Fantasy Island. Okay, here we are. Where are we? We're on the edge or the flank of Mount Rainier. And it's a volcano that you can see from downtown Seattle. This is the crater up on top. Now, the earthquakes are happening right on the flank or the side of it, but really I want you to think of this just happening because the magma chamber down below is being slightly perturbed. Now, let me show you the other quake to the south that's going to make a little bit more sense. Amboy, Washington, 38 kilometers northeast of Amboy. What's up northeast of Amboy, Washington? Anybody know? I know. The Shadow knows. My viewers know. We're going inside of the crater or right on the flank, right on the top pinnacle point of Mount St. Helens. Think of this up inside of the volcano. But we're quite literally right there. So Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens, both showing small seismic. What about out in the Puget Sound or going over to the Olympic Peninsula? Grape View, Washington. Do we have a fault here by Olympia? I think we do. We sure do. I don't know the name of it. Let's go find out the name of it. I know the Seattle fault's up north. What's this one? Well, Tacoma. Well, creatively named. It's going right to Tacoma, the Tacoma Fault. So we've got ourselves a small earthquake on the Tacoma Fault in between or right next to these other two volcanic quakes. Now remember what I said about the Craton Edge going down through Yellowstone. Look at Montana, look at the earthquakes. Aren't they making a diagonal line through Montana following the Craton Edge down into the park? Now what about the earthquakes over in Idaho? The number of earthquakes in Idaho have fallen through the floor. We only have what? 1, 2, 3, 4 earthquakes. We saw a pocket or a good cluster of quakes right here where the arrow is. Now where the arrow is and where most of the earthquakes are in Idaho, that is above the magma chamber for Yellowstone. Even though Yellowstone's all the way over here, the magma chamber for Yellowstone goes down around and goes down at an angle 30 kilometers or more and below all of Idaho. So really this is like the center of the deepest part of the magma chamber for Yellowstone, down below. Even though it comes up to the surface here and everybody thinks about just Yellowstone being right there. So the earthquakes are happening between the magma chamber and the surface. Up above the magma chamber, that's where these are happening. But they've fallen through the floor. While we've started to pick up, or at least spread out to the other volcanoes over on the coast. So while this is dying out, this is starting to pick back up. Now you'll notice there's no earthquakes in Oregon. Yeah. You know what? Let's go check the tremor map and see what's going on with the tremors. 31 tremors in California as of yesterday. They are not reporting today's tremors yet. Let's go to the 6th. Well, look what was happening on the 6th. These tremors, these small red dots, these little vibrations as the plate is shifting, are assigned magnitudes, but it's not breaking in the plate. The plate is shifting, it's vibrating, and each one of these is a different vibration that has a magnitude assigned to it. So it was happening up in Vancouver Island on the 6th. Then yesterday, boom, shifted to the south. 6th to the north, 7th to the south. What do the two locations have in common? Well, let's go back over to the USGS plate boundary map. What does the location up here in Vancouver Island and the location down here in California have in common? They are the pinnacle points where this arrow, if you will, is pointing into the spot that's shifting in Vancouver Island. And the arrow belongs to the Pacific Plate, which itself is pushing into the Juan de Fuca the Juan de Fuca fracture zone here, but those jagged edges belong to the Pacific. So if we have a big push coming out, over, down, and around, and we see a series of vibrations break out up here and down here, those are the corresponding points of the Juan de Fuca starting to vibrate as energy is coming into the plate. It's coming into California. And all of a sudden, California lights up with a bunch of new earthquakes as the push is coming in. It's a light push right now. We're expecting a breakout in the ocean in the 5-ish to maybe even larger, but in the 5-ish range. It's also light coming in from the northwest on the edge of the craton, but yet it is still coming in. You can trace the line of them. Even going down through Utah. Now, California's coast, starting up here on the north side of the Bay Area, you'll see the stack of earthquakes. That's at a place called the Geysers of California, or Cobb Anderson. It's a geothermal pumping operation. See if we can get the coordinates for this. The Geysers. And again, I show this just for the new viewers. The new viewers are the ones that need to see this, as well as the professionals who might not have ever looked it up. What professional is going to sit there and pull the coordinates for current earthquakes and put them in on Google Earth to go find out what's there? Please, they don't do that. They just don't. So, here we are. We are right on the edge of the geothermal pumping operations at Clear Lake Volcano, which itself is a volcanic field. And we are on the side of it. This is marked from the Smithsonian, but all of those geothermal turbines on the sides of these hills are connected to pipelines, and the pipelines go out to these drill points. And the drill points go down a few hundred to a few thousand feet, and they inject human sewage, like from your house. They inject that down into the ground and leave the nasties in the ground and steam it off, bring the steam up through the pipes to turn the turbines, to provide electrical power. That's where the earthquakes are happening. Now, we're equally spaced. That stack has an equal spacing on both sides. Remember, the equal spacing of the quakes. And it doesn't matter whether it's across 100 miles or 10,000 miles. The spacing still take place. And in the middle, that's where the biggest amount of movement's happening. North side and south side, we're seeing the movement take place on the north side of the Bay Area, going up through Napa Valley. What is that area? Let me go back over to the USGS map. Our warning is right here. Okay? And compare the warned area to where the earthquakes are coming in. If we have a warning going right in here for a new 5 to pop off out in the ocean, and all of a sudden just to the south, following the red lines on the interior part of the plate boundary right here, we start seeing a bunch of earthquakes here, here, and here, it means something's saturating to the north. And we already know something's saturating to the north because the tremor map shows it. The little red dots. Am I going to have another Yoda moment? Is my voice going to collapse? I'm going to have to drink my coffee? Hold on. Starting to feel like it. It's a bitch to get old, Zoomers. Yeah, the Gen X. I'm a Gen X boomer. You know how it goes. So we have a line of quakes going down along the coast of Monterey Bay. 1.0. A bunch of old people are just like, what? What's a boomer, Zoomer? There's boomers, which are Gen X boomers. Then there's grand boomers that are actual boomers. And then there's great grand boomers who are like older than boomers. And then there's Zoomers. They're anybody under 30. So, all right. Clearing that up now that you understand. And now I've got your attention. Line of earthquakes going down across to Monterey Bay and then stopping right here. Why are we stopping at a place called Parkfield, California? Well, look. The red line. The red line, it's not San Andreas' fault, of course, but it's the thick red line. It's the plate boundary. This is a crack. All these red lines, let me explain it this way. The red lines that you see here all over the world are boundaries between plates. But the way I think of them like a crack that starts at the surface and goes all the way down, separating the two plates, of course. Now, it might not be perfectly straight, of course it's not, but it's jagged and it's going down hundreds of miles, and that crack goes all the way down to the underside of the plate. And so, you've got magma down below the underside of the plate, and you've got waves of some kind spreading through the plate. And when that wave spreads through the plate, and it reaches the break point on the underside of the plate that goes up to the surface, that's where the earthquakes get dropped off equally all the way along the way. And so, the San Andreas, really just think of it like a crack at the surface that goes all the way down through the plate. And you'll say, well, why aren't there volcanoes right there? There are, or there were, and they're certainly over to the east, and they're certainly out in the ocean. So out in the ocean you got them, over to the east you got them, and that's where the break is. But what's at Parkfield? Why are we stopping? Again, one more time. We've got earthquakes coming down through here. I just talked about the volcano up here. Then we have a line coming down Monterey Bay. We go down to Parkfield. We stop right there. This is again for the new people. I ask this question every single time that we get on. But we're going to go pull the coordinates and I'll show you what's there. There's a reason we stop at Parkfield. For the last 100 or more years, right next to Parkfield, they've been drilling tens of thousands of times, no less. Not a few times. Tens of thousands of times. This is the San Andreas Fault. You can see it in the mountain range. Jumping a few miles, not even. Right over here, all of this is drilled. And you have to zoom in to find them. You can't just easily see them from space. And you start seeing all the jacks and the pumps and the pipelines. And you see how many there are. And they start to look like ants on the ground. There's a little solar farm. Had to offset some green energy, right? But look how many pumping operations there are just right here. Again, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you there's thousands right here alone. And they keep going up to the north, right to about here. And this is sparse, believe it or not. That looks like a lot, and it is. It's several thousand. But once we get down here, it goes into what I would call insane overdrive. One more time, this is the San Andreas, and our earthquakes come down to here and stop. But then they pick back up down here. Right down here. Why? Why do they go down to Parkfield and stop, and then pick back up down here? Well, everywhere between Parkfield and all the way down here has been drilled right up to the San Andreas. Tens of thousands of times per spot. All of these, oil and gas wells. You see the pipelines, tanks, pumps, jacks. Look how many there are. That's just right. Here's the San Andreas. There's the pumping ops. And they just keep going to the south, all the way along the front foothills. And we go, oh, they've done the whole mountain range. See how this looks like sand dunes? This is what the mountain used to look like. Gullies, foothills, and this is what it looks like now, where they scraped out every hilltop, every gully, and made an oil well. And they did the whole mountain range that way, over to here. Right, it looks like sand dunes, doesn't it? But when you start to find them all, you're like, dang. Well, all of this, they drilled the hell out of it, and that's where the earthquakes go down to. The earthquakes go down to the point where the drilling starts, and then pick back up on the south part, where the drilling kind of putters out. You'll find Mother Nature goes around over to the east, and that brings me into the California-Nevada border. So, California-Nevada border, the number of earthquakes have increased, and the magnitudes behind them also increased to 3.0. What's right here at the border? A supervolcano on the California side, and a volcanic field over on the other side in Nevada. There's two lone quakes going down to the south, but I've got something to show you. So where do we start? Let's start with the supervolcano, then go across over into Nevada, and then I'm going to blow your mind when I show you what happened last night. Your mind is about to be blown. I don't care if you're a longtime viewer or a new viewer when I show you what happened last night. But first I got to build up to it. So, Central California, right at the Nevada border, supervolcano. Now, Mammoth Mountain is actually small. It's a small volcano on the side of the greater Long Valley caldera here. And the Long Valley caldera has 1,000 cubic kilometers of meltdown below, classifying it as a supervolcano. Now look, again, around this whole area, we've got a bunch of earthquakes that are breaking out throughout the whole caldera. Now we jump across the border and we go, I'm just going to pull an earthquake from right in the middle here. We're going to go over into Nevada, and we're going to the Monte Cristo Hills Volcanic Center. So let's put the coordinates in. Going over to the east, look what we've got going on. Hello? McFly. Well, I'm not Biff, so I'm not going to call you McFly. Hello? Hey, hello, take a look at the screen. The computer is filtering out these hotspots. It doesn't know what to make of them, so it's filtering them out. It's detecting hotspots across this volcanic field called Coaldale, going up here to the north. It's the only spot that has hotspots here. Now, this is just happening today. Guess what happened last night? This same thing happened last night. I told you your mind was about to be blown. Same thing happened last night down here at Ubi Craters. UBB craters last night had a series of hotspots going right into the crater itself. I showed them on the live stream live last night. We were mind blown to see it happen. And it was across this whole area, Ubehebe, going over here to this edge of the Ubehebe craters where the old volcanic field still exists. You can still see the red and black cinders on a lot of these old buttes. But this happened last night at Ubehebe craters, which are just huge craters in a volcanic field in their own right. But up to the north now, it's shifted. The hotspots have shifted, and we have earthquakes right there that are taking place right now. Cannot be dismissed. So what are the hotspots? It could be anything from a plate discharge of electricity to an actual discharge of heat. Miles wide. Where the computer doesn't read it like a fire because it's not really a fire. However, we have seen fires break out as a result of these hotspot outbreaks in the past. Sorry, hit the microphone again. That we've seen this happen in the past. And fires break out. People tried to tell me it was the fire season. Tried to say it was farmers burning their fields. The USGS even weighed in on it when I was showing them last year. The earthquake's breaking out right next to them. They tried to say it was farmers burning their fields. This is not farmers burning their fields. This is in the middle of the desert, in the middle of a volcanic field. It happened last night at the middle of the depth of the Ubehebe crater itself, and now today it's happening over in Nevada again. Cannot be dismissed. Something's going on. The plate shifting, it's releasing heat. Whether it's electric discharge that the computer's picking up, this is from satellite up in space, picking that up. Okay. Going down to the south, we have 2 lone quakes, and we go in dead end into a spot I think everybody's going to want to see because we haven't been there in months. Again, longtime viewers and new viewers alike are going to be mind blown to see where we're going back to here. Literally mind blown. Because we are on the edge of a huge nuclear test site. This is Doomtown right here, the famous Operation Rise Line. You guys might remember. Let's turn on the Google Earth community. That'll give us all the info on these. Operation Rise Line, Doomtown, where they blew it away. And these are all the underground nuke test sites. Every one of these little craters in the ground, U.S. nuke Operation Guanay. September 4th, 1964, 12 kilotons. Just one example of hundreds of underground nuke test sites here. And they go up to the north to all these sites here, where we did nuclear testing with the UK and France. And they came over here and detonated their own nukes out there as well. So we're on the edge of it, where all these man-made faults are taking place, getting hit, and the spread is coming down from where we have an increase. And the increase is coming from up here, where I didn't even look up the earthquake up on the north side. Shall we? We have 2 earthquakes up on the north side, 1.3 and 1.3. Let's start with the 1.3 here between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. Now, what would you do if I told you there's a supervolcano between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake that professionals have not yet discovered, but I've pointed out for the last 5 years? Let me show it to you. First of all, there's Sugarloaf Peak Volcanic Butte, an ancient volcano. To even call this a volcano, I really wouldn't. It's more like the remnants of a volcano from undersea a long time ago. But here is the supervolcano between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake, this giant oval shape. And it's lined with its own volcanoes. It gets hit with earthquakes around the outside edge of this, going into the middle, and we saw hot spots and fires break out around the outside edge and go into the middle of this. It's directly in the middle, in between 2 deep basins or folds, Pyramid Lake on the north side and Tahoe on the south. And then I'm going to turn our volcanoes back on. And what we'll see is down on the south side, right next to Lake Tahoe, we have Steamboat Springs. It's a Smithsonian-marked volcanic field where they built houses on top of. But right across the highway, they've got all the geothermal turbines where they're tapping in to get the steam again. Drill points into the volcanic field. Again, look at the distance from Lake Tahoe. Look at the distance from the oval shape. Now we're going to go on the north side. We're going to go about the same distance. The north side. What we're going to find are a bunch of fumaroles and old volcanoes here on the north side. The Needles at Pyramid Lake. They're just not tapped into. It's an Indian reservation right around there. But it's geothermal on both sides, about the same space apart. We have 2 folds or basins, same size and shape, about on this, again, around this. It gets hit with earthquakes and hotspots around the outside edge. And this oval shape is bigger than this oval shape, which is a confirmed supervolcano, Long Valley, that I just showed you. Both of them are getting hit with quakes, one less, the one to the north, of course, it's more ancient. So we have a same-sized earthquake up here on the northeast portion of California. I don't ever recall having to look up an earthquake up here. It's at 54.4 kilometer depth. Daffodil Park, California. Yeah, I don't recall this. I don't know what's there. Let's go look it up. A rare earthquake in northeast California at a spot we never see. What is here? What is that? Okay, some kind of pond for cattle, maybe. We have salt flats there. Oh wow, look at the plate structure here. Look at that. Look at those faults. What is going on there? That is cool as all get out. Wait, Rattlesnake Butte is right next to this. Never heard of Rattlesnake Butte. Well, that looks just like almost like the one that we were just looking at down in Reno. Sugarloaf Butte. It looks almost exactly the same. Well, to call that a volcano really isn't doing it justice. It's ancient. Oh, wait. We're on the edge of one of the biggest volcanic fields in the Northwest. Look at this. Okay, Hackamore. The Hackamore Volcanic Field. Hackamore is a large volcanic field east of the Medicine Lake volcano. Its quaternary field covers an area of at least 850 square kilometers, with at least a dozen vents. That's all of this over here. That's this discoloration here. That's all this discoloration right here that's covered in trees, going back over to the west. And then here's the younger lava flows. So, for instance, this is the lava flow. That's not forest fire. You can see that's all just... It's so young that it doesn't have any tree growth on it. And the glass flows, look at that. Glass Mountain Volcano. Look at that lava flow. That's cool. Wonder how high that is off the ground. Let's get a side view. I don't know, I'm just nerding out now. I just want to see how tall it is. How big was that? So, 100 feet? That's a 100-foot high lava flow. Imagine that coming out and going down the road. You know, you think about over in Iceland with that Bardarbunga volcanic eruption a few years back where it was spreading out. It's like 10 or 15 feet tall. A wall of lava spreading slowly. This one, 100 feet. And it's young enough, again, it doesn't have any trees on it. Okay, let's get back into it. That's where the earthquake is. I'm glad we went and checked. So, what do all these earthquakes, at least up here to the north, have in common? Let's recap. Mount Rainier, volcano. Mount St. Helens, volcano. Magma chamber for Yellowstone, again, volcano. And Yellowstone National Park. There's only like 4 earthquakes up here, one in the Puget Sound and a couple up here on the edge of the Great Down that are not directly at volcanoes. We come down here to this 1.3, volcano. Go to this 1.3, volcano. The big stack of earthquakes over here, volcano. We go down to the California-Nevada border, and on both sides, volcano and volcano. Then we go down further to the south, and we have the Ubehebe craters on this side, on the California side, that had hot spots at it, and now a 1.3 across from it. Go down to the Nuke test sites. They're not volcanoes, but come on. They're fracture points in the plate that humans made that are punch points in the plate that you could even say are almost like a volcano blasting from down below, creating a fault or a man-made fault. 2 lone quakes coming out of the Bay Area, and then we go down next to the drill points. Drill points for oil. Going over to the east, I haven't talked about these yet, but I should. Let's pull the stack in the middle. Little Lake, California. Little Lake. Is there a Little Lake out there? It's Death Valley, basically. There probably are little lakes around here, but these little lakes I'm about to show you aren't why it's called Little Lake. Here's the earthquake epicenter. Do you see? Again, we're in the desert. We have an unnamed volcanic butte on the east side, but you would totally be able to see the lava flows and volcanic field over to the west. Volcano Peak. This thing is really cool looking too. So it's got rising lava domes that are forming here on the top, or formed in the past. They didn't erupt, but then all these did. These are lava flows coming out and going out into the desert. Our new earthquake coming in right on the side of Volcano Peak. That's the middle of the mess, right here where the stack is. We go down to the south and up to the north just a little bit, and just a little bit over to the east by a few miles. So down to the south, up to the north, and just a little bit to the east. Well, up to the north, if we just go a little bit to the east, we're at the Kozo Field, where we have our warning going for our new 5 to strike. Kozo Volcanic Field's been drilled to get steam, to turn turbines, to provide the power. So it's a weak point from Mother Nature, and then humans punched in from up above. And it's somewhat right next to the nuke sites right across the border, and the hot spots that are appearing here. Southern California, look at the spacing again. Do you see that? It's just small earthquakes, but the spacing is going back to what I showed you in the wave tank again. Same sized earthquakes popping off along through the wave tank, but this wave tank that we're talking about here in Southern California is made up of fault zones. So this whole time we've been talking about the thick red lines around the whole planet containing the earthquakes, right? But once we get down to the smaller earthquakes, they spread through the thinner red lines, which are the smaller breaks in the plate. They're the faults. They're just breaks in the plate, not all the way through the plate. Not from the top to the bottom, at least. So these are breaks in the plate, and smaller earthquakes tend to travel through those faults, and it spells out a path of the same size quakes going down and dead-ending west of Salton Sea. Now, the number of earthquakes, relatively low. West of Salton Sea, what's there? Here's Salton Sea, west of Salton Sea, the San Jacinto Anza Gap slow slip location. 6 years ago, the University of Southern California announced that this spot, this whole series of red lines, the San Jacinto and the Elsinore, were quote-unquote slow slipping in an episodic tremor slip that would eventually lead to a large earthquake on a nearby fault. Their quote. So, what's going on? For 6 years, we've seen this. This picks up and slows down. The number of earthquakes can go up off the screen or go down to what we're seeing here now. We've seen this go up into the 5-ish range, and that's the pinnacle of where we've seen it go. But notice, again, all these earthquakes are happening on the slow slip spot. So wait, if this is slow slipping down here in Southern California, and it's slow slipping up here in Northern California, I already showed it to you, but I'll show it to you again on the tremor map. If we're slow slipping right now in Northern California, confirmed, that's what these little red dots are here on the screen. And if we're slow slipping confirmed down in Southern California, but there are no red dots, we have to look to the quakes. And just think of these like the little red dots on the other map. So it's slow slipping here, and it's slow slipping up here. Well, what do you think's happening in between? Look at it. Again, the earthquakes match. So in between, it's slipping too, and it's going along the coast, and it's going along the California-Nevada border. Seeking out the weak points, the drill points, and the volcanoes, basically. That's what's happening. Now we go back up here, and that's where the slow slip is taking place, and we've got volcanoes on all perimeters showing activity so far. Again, Rainier, St. Helens, down here to the south, next to one I never even knew existed, Rattlesnake Butte. Yellowstone moving, California-Nevada border moving, again, 2 supervolcanoes. One here, next to Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake, and one here, Long Valley. Then another volcanic field moving down here to the south. And don't forget, hot spots right out here in the middle of Monte Cristo Hills volcanic views, where they're having an earthquake swarm. All of a sudden, hot spots start to appear. Southern California, line of quakes, dead ending into where we have the warning going. LA Basin, quiet. I don't like that. I don't like seeing all this quiet right here. Even the south tip of the valley. Again, I told you, earthquakes come down to Parkfield here, and then we got a bunch of drill points all the way down to the south tip of the valley, right? But we don't have anything picking up down here yet. I would expect a break at Frazier Park, actually. Break at Frazier Park. Now let's go over to Utah, Texas, and over to the East Coast and get ready to wrap this update up, assuming nothing else has happened since the start of this update. But let's go to Utah. So you've got an earthquake at the north side of Salt Lake City and a south side of Salt Lake City, and then 2 quakes down here to the south. Well, these 2 quakes down to the south are just around a volcanic field called the Markagunt Plateau. And the 2 earthquakes up to the north are right next to something called the Wasatch Fault. Okay, let's turn our borders and labels back on. Go over to Utah. Utah. Where is Utah? Right here. Oh, wait. Hey, we've got a boatload of hotspots right across the area from Salt Lake down to the spot where we have the quakes. You got to be kidding me. The whole Wasatch Fault has a whole bunch of hotspots just over it. And the computer's filtering it out again. Doesn't know what to make of it. Got to be kidding me, man. Look at that. All the little red dots here. Every little red dot's a new detected hotspot from the weather satellite. Let me show you what's here, and it's going to start to make a little more sense why we're going to have some hotspots. So starting here, let's just zoom in on this red one right here. Do you see the grid of little pads on the ground? Every one of these is an oil well. Actually natural gas well. You see how many there are? Goes across the mountains. Yeah, those aren't campsites. Those aren't forestry clear cuts. They go up to the north. They go through the farm fields. The little white pads again. Now that you know what to look for, you can see them all over the place. And it goes back down to the south. This is just, I mean, I'm not even meaning to talk about this. You can tell I don't really want to even mention it, but with the hotspots there, I have to. I'm not against oil and gas. But when you start drilling, it creates a weak point in the plate. Now, the two earthquakes to the south, like I said, they're on the north side of Markagund Plateau. Let's go show those to you, see if there's anything going on in Markagund. If I see hot spots up around the drill points, I start to wonder, is there anything going on down here? Oh, there is! Another filtered hotspot. The computer doesn't know what to make of it. Going on out here in the desert, going over to our volcanic field. This is like the Grand Canyon, basically. If not the Grand Canyon, it's almost like it. I wonder if we can get a street level view anywhere in here. We got a street level view kind of next to where the hotspot is. Or one of them. Yeah, I'm going to have to say this is not exactly... This doesn't exactly look like forest fire material level. Gotta be kidding me, man. Okay, so, I mean, it's plate releasing of maybe some kind of electrical energy that the computer's picking up, or it's a release of actual heat. Actual heat. Going out into the desert over here. Looks even more sparse over here. Do we have anything we could do? Hey, look, we do. We have a street level over here. Yeah, no forest fire. We got a huge forest fire going on out there. The sand is burning. New type of fire, sand fire. My goodness, it's on the edge of the Grand Canyon. All right, I'm glad I took the time to look that up. So let's go down to Texas. What's down at the edge of Texas? Well, first of all, it's the Craton edge. Look at New Mexico, look at Texas. It makes a U-shaped bend through southern Texas. But there's drill points here. Mentone, Texas. Mentone. Metone. Paste and search. Going down to Texas. What's there? You see it? Do you see all the little square pads in the ground? Now, Texas is known for its pumping operations, so I don't think anybody's going to be shocked to find out that Texas has millions of drill points that are surpassing Saudi Arabia now. And all these drill points, one more time, you're on the edge of the Craton, and you go drilling into it a whole bunch. A push comes in from the west coast. What do you think's going to happen? It's going to seek out the weak points like scoring on a piece of stone or perforations in a piece of cardboard. Same with Oklahoma. All of these spots in Oklahoma, there's 4 different sets of quakes, but I'll just pull one from right in the middle. You can go look up the rest if you need to. Dibble, Oklahoma. Dibble. We're going down to Dibble. I live in Dibble. Hey. I live in Dibble. Okay, hey, let's go down there. Let's go down to Oklahoma. I hear you guys having fun down there. Having fun down there ever since you legalized it, right? My viewers. Hey, look what we have right here. Look what we've got. We've got a drill point with a team of people out there with a Derek and a Jack. When was this imagery date taken? Hold on. I guess I need to turn off all my borders and labels. Yeah, okay, yeah. Imagery date 2019. Yeah, with all this drill points, somebody's down there smoking something because it's not a good idea, guys. It really isn't when you have this many drill points. All these little pads are across Oklahoma on the edge of the Craton. And I got tired of marking them. Oh, look, we got hotspots there. Go figure. And the computer's filtering them out again. It doesn't know what to make of them. Oh, no, wait. I stand corrected. This one is an actual detection of a temperature, 523 K. So 500 degrees Fahrenheit or so. Look, they're going in clusters all the way across Arkansas, Missouri. Wow! Hold on, it's the entire country. The entire country. We have hotspots across the entire country. At least the Midwest, going along the edge of the craton, guys. It's a perfect match, and then the interior portion of the craton a little bit less. This is crazy. This is crazy. Wow. Again, somebody's going to have to explain this to me other than it being an electrical discharge from the plate. It's matching the craton perfectly. Look, the red dots go down across Colorado, go down across Utah, go down around Texas, go back up to the Midwest, most of them on the southern edge of the craton, and then we go into the middle of the plate, and it's like an equal distribution of them across the middle of the plate. Once we get up to the northeast, it dies out. It doesn't go up to the northeast. It kind of dies out right around Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Canada. And up to the northwest, it kind of dies out right around Yellowstone. We get a couple out in the deserts at the volcanoes in California. Again, these little red dots that I'm looking at here. Man, something's going on. Something's going on. East Coast, we're on the edge of the craton over at the South Carolina, North Carolina border region, but I want to go pull the coordinates and go see what's there. Mills River, North Carolina. Going to Fraser's Ridge. You become the laird of the ridge. Okay. What's over here all the way on the side edge of the craton? What is that? Wow. Is that some... it looks like some kind of... Oh, wait. High voltage power line is right there. Look at that. High voltage power line directly at the... Not the kind that goes to your house. I'm talking... They got some kind of pump station there or something. High voltage power line going right to it. I mean, we're right at it. Well, I'm glad I checked. Is there anything else here? There's an international airport. Or some kind of big airport. Maybe not international. Oh, wow. All right. Well, that's... Again, that... To me, when I find that, I zoom in, I find the high voltage power line and a pumping station. Is there anything else here nearby? To have a quake there of all places. Because the last spot we were at, up here at the North Carolina, Virginia border at Sparta, was like 4 different sets of high voltage power lines coming together all at that spot, and that's where the earthquake was. So now we're at another one, but a state away, again, down at the southern part of the state, hundreds of miles away. Well, this is a perfect point for me to wrap it up. Guys, you need to pay attention to what's going on with the earthquakes. I will be on here to do updates and tell you the areas that are being hit, but what good is that? You need to know ahead of time of the areas that we're watching. So we're watching between our current sets of earthquakes over the last 48 hours. You can go watch my update over on YouTube. You can just fast forward it to the part about the United States, or you can fast forward it to the part about Europe or wherever you live. Just fast forward to your portion of the planet and listen to that update and that warning for you issued now 2 days ago, almost 3 days ago. So we're 2 days in to 3 days in. Well, let's say 2. 2 days in on a 7-day watch. We have 5 more days to go, and the spreads are taking place. Again, I showed you at the start of this update, the spreads are taking place, but right now we're under expected amplitude. That means there's missing power somewhere stuck in the system still. Okay. Has anything hit since I started my update? I guess that's the next question. Let's just go back to the start of the update. A bunch of 2s going across Europe. I don't think anything significant there is developed. A bunch of 2s going across the United States. I don't think that's too significant. And no. You know what? At this point, let's go over and check the chat room on Twitch. So, if you're watching on YouTube, you are watching something that's pre-recorded. I record this live before my Twitch audience, which right now, I don't know how many people are in there. I guess we can go figure that out here. Hold on. Let's go see how many people. About 500 people are in there right now, 489. But if you're watching on YouTube, please share the information. I know it's not live, but you can come over and watch it live on Twitch anytime. It's free to watch. Everybody on Twitch, thank you for doing your part. You guys have made a big difference in getting the live word out. So while you're waiting for me to upload it over on YouTube so you can share it via video, the people who are live in the chat room are really doing a phenomenal job. It's noticeable. And warnings are getting out. People are getting the earthquake information real time from the Spectros and then posting it in chat. And that gets the earthquake information out before the agencies even post it. We know something's hit. The magnitudes, we can try to figure out the magnitudes from the Spectros, but just knowing that something big is hit somewhere and getting that word out before they even post the information, that's priceless. That's priceless information right there. I mean, that's what the mainstream media is looking for. It's what everybody wants. They want to know, even before it posts on the USGS site, what's going on? Is a big one hit or not? And then we can figure out what magnitude it is after we figure out whether or not a big one is even hit. But that's because of my viewers. I didn't ask for that. You guys are just doing that on your own. Makes a big difference. Now, finally, let me wrap this up by telling everybody, please, if you're watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share the info. And have an earthquake plan of your own, please. Because what good is knowing any of this information if you're not going to be prepared? So you need to at least have an emergency kit. You need to think about what you're going to do when an emergency strikes. Think about what you're going to do after the emergency, and maybe even think about taking care of your friends and family, co-workers. Have extra supplies ready in your bag. Change of clothes, set of shoes, of course, but food and water, communications, batteries, first aid kit, sanitation, extra set of keys, extra ID. Why not put that stuff into a bag and have it all ready to go? Now, the final point on this, take a look at the screen. Upper right-hand corner. Where are we at? We're at 499. I don't know exactly where we're at over on YouTube. We're almost to 500,000. Let's go see. Let's see how close we are to 500K. Go over to my dashboard. We're at 499,689. 499,689. We have about 300 more subscribers to go to hit 500,000. I've been working on this for 10 years. 10 years of constant daily updating. We started to blow up in the past several years because of the successful earthquake forecasting method and publishing it. If I would have just sat on it and tried to, hoard it for myself or cash in on it, that's wrong, in my opinion. I mean, somebody else might try to do that, but I would say since we published the how-to, and if you don't know, I published how-to, step-by-step directions so anybody can repeat the method. Science is all about repeating the method, being able to do repeatable tests. And in order to do that, you got to publish your method and how to do it. So I did that in video, so there's no doubt about that. And ever since then, channel skyrocketed. So thank you guys for doing the method, doing it yourself even. It's made a big difference. So we'll hit 500,000 hopefully at some point today if you guys subscribe. But I got to ask you, that's 300 people. 300 people, hit that button, man. I'll be back on later on tonight, most likely. Peace out, word up, much love. See you later. And people asking about the hoodies. I still have some stuff in the Teespring store, but I don't even remember what it is. I don't really sell merch, but you can go over to Teespring and probably search Dutch Sense and find stuff if you want to. But yeah, it should be there. I'm going to probably work on something for this summer, get some new t-shirts, that kind of stuff for this coming spring and summer. We'll probably in the next few weeks get that done. Okay, now we are done. Peace out.